Welcome to China Brand's webinar series on data protection in China. My name is Alexander Dittberner, and I'm here today with my dear colleague, Mr. Haitong Qi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Haitong Qi, and good morning, and welcome to our webinar.
Together, we're going to look at the backdrop of the current regulation situation in China, talk a bit about our experience with projects in this regard, and ultimately show you how to face the pending deadline with confidence. For your questions and suggestions, please feel free to use the chat box to your right, and we'll address these at the end of the session. So let's jump right in. Yeah, starting off, we take a quick look at today's agenda. For all the busy bees with only short time on your hands, these are the key facts of today's session, but the interesting bits are in the details as always. So, global data protection regulation is on the rise, as many of you have heard or witnessed even, and China is leading this part for the Southeast of Asia, strictly on the enforcement agenda. On the agenda here is China's cybersecurity and cyber sovereignty as a key factor for their political ambitions. And that led to this hard deadline coming end of this November for the assessment of your subsidiaries' data processing and specifically the data that is crossing borders, exporting from China. This means for your multinational activities that you have to prepare your China subsidiaries for the governmental oversight here. Most likely your data flow compliance is here not yet to standard, as these regulations are quite new, and also the enforcement and implementation is still a bit in a gray zone. But don't worry, if you start now with a little project here and there in China regarding data protection and cybersecurity, you can also start off your good data protection that is also already international standard in your organization and be headed for a compliant future in the coming years. So we recommend that you start with a locally assessment on your data processing, which then will kick off the awareness for your local personnel concerning with your IT and data protection in China. Specifically, we advise that you right now check up your China-specific compliance needs and get compliance documents ready for the administrative oversight. This means you from headquarters should communicate ASAP with your subsidiary and delegate a project team for the assessment of your data processings and critically the data flows that are coming out of China. And of course, document the results, because compliance documentation is key here. When the administration knocks on your door, you want to be prepared. The global IT and data compliance management here is in the lead. They need to plan and budget for this project and then have in communication with the local IT and data protection departments, gather the information that is needed to procure the documents. This means we are 1 week into November. In the next 3 weeks, you should conclude data flow threshold analysis. And if you seem to cross these thresholds, engage in a thorough data transfer compliance assessment of all your processing and all your data transfers. This is a quick rundown, but let's go into detail here and we'll look at the map. So here you see the world map, and as many of you also have felt in your day-to-day work, doing compliance work globally, most all the nations and markets that are relevant to your business operations already have legislation concerning data protection, privacy, data security, cybersecurity. In the last months, there was new regulation coming out from Germany, Switzerland, also South Korea and India with a new data protection bill, but we are mostly focused on China right now and go into detail here. The critical legislation here is China's personal information protection law and also the data security law. But the tricky part here is the administrative regulations that are coming out for comment to the public and are going in a step-by-step implementation in the coming months. So what you might have seen is that your China operations are, well, mostly concerned about the business aspect and the financial aspect, but compliance implementation is also a critical part here, as you want to secure your operation from a legal side as well. From what we've seen so far is that data protection and IT security in China, as these regulations are still quite new, are not yet up to standard, and if standards are set, they are likely not implemented. So keep that in mind. But let's focus here on China and zoom in a little bit. For facing the impending deadline, we suggest you go with a layered approach here, because every situation for each organization is, of course, different, and your needs are also different. Your data and business environment is different, and also looking at your industry, you might process different data than others. So for your global management here, it is advisable to go with a three-step approach, which means firstly, we recommend that you do a threshold analysis, because these regulations are concerning how much data you're processing and transporting out of China, and also the quality of the data. Are this data sensitive? Do you have critical data categories, or are you concerned with critical infrastructure in China? Because this goes all back to the security aspect, cybersecurity, but also just national security for China. So you should do a quick threshold analysis for your risk management, see if you cross these thresholds, or if you're unsure whether or not you're crossing these thresholds, if you're kind of in between the threshold, we advise you do the next steps and do a more thorough data mapping, a concrete analysis of all your data that is processing locally, but also where it is stored and where it is transferred to, most likely from China to your headquarters in Europe or America. And you need to document these activities for the governmental oversight. If coming out of the data mapping, you come to the conclusion that you still do not reach those thresholds, you do not cross those thresholds, that is good, because you still need the compliance documentation for your management. If, however, you cross the thresholds, and this is concerning the deadline that is procured now, you need to have proper cross-border data transfer compliance. The deadline is mostly concerning this cross-border data transfer, and you need to do additional compliance measures here. This is, specifically speaking, a personal information assessment, which you might know already from a different basis concerning the GDPR in Europe, the transfer impact assessment, so to speak, and also the standard contractual clauses from a European side are also very well known. However, these are China-specific, have a more thorough documentation requirement, and also need to be filed with the authorities. So this three-step approach is quite cost efficient and also time efficient. Just look at your situation and go with the easiest step. We look now into more detail, and I hand over to my colleague, Mr. Qi, who will present how this process should look like.
My colleague has just walked you through the background and our service process in general. And now I would like to, well, go a step further into the details of our service by giving you an example. And I would also like to share with you some experience as well as the challenges of the compliance practice. Well, in this slide, you can see a screenshot of our data processing list, which is the standard document that we use in our data mapping project, which we have been also optimizing and adjusting throughout our practice experience in last years. And as you can see, the document is written in Chinese since the most employees on site in China are Chinese, and the interviews there are mostly conducted in Chinese, but of course we provide the document in English or in German to the headquarters. In this so-called data mapping project, we investigate thoroughly the data processing activities in each department in your subsidiaries, which, for example, include categories of the data, the volume of the data, the type of the data subjects, well, the legal basis of data collection, and of course the systems in which this data are processed and saved or transformed to the headquarters. And we collect the information by conducting interviews with your subsidiaries in China, well, either online or on site if necessary. And all the information and results are recorded in this document. The project or the document itself gives in the first place the headquarters a very clear picture about what is really going on in the context of data activities in their subsidiaries. But most importantly, it serves as a solid foundation for our further analysis and compliance measurements. Well, if we move to the next step, say we need to draft a standard contract clauses or conduct an PCA for you, we will still, well, require some even more detailed information, for example, the technical measurement or the management protocol of your subsidiary or so on. Perhaps a second interview appointment will be needed, but like said, in the data mapping project, the foundation has been laid and a great part of the work has already been done. Okay, let's move to the next slide. And now I would like to share some practice experience, or more specifically, the challenges the headquarters often face in the compliance practice in China. And some of them are the challenges in general when you're doing business internationally, and some of them have something to do with the nature of the compliance practice. The problem that the headquarters are generally facing is the evolving regulations in China. The legal landscape in China is, of course, very dynamic and rapidly evolving. It's often challenging for the headquarters to stay up to date with this latest regulations. Besides, it's quite common that the international firms have trouble understanding the Chinese culture. They do not know how exactly the local authorities work and have often problems regarding the communication with the subsidiaries as well. And besides all this, managing data compliance between multiple parties, the headquarters, subsidiary, and the local authorities, well, coordinating their efforts can be a significant challenge, and employees at the subsidiary, well as the employees at the headquarters, might not always be so highly motivated to lead compliance initiative on their own. It's not their, frankly speaking, primary focus as it's shown in the picture in this slide, and they may lack the understanding of its importance. And this is exactly where our service comes into play. We have designed our solution to address these very challenges. We facilitate coordination among all parties involved and streamlining the compliance process. Our team stays on top of the ever-changing legal landscape in China, and we will ensure you remain compliant with the latest regulations. We bridge the cultural gap, helping you understand China better. And most importantly, we also motivate your employees by aligning compliance efforts with their interests and demonstrating its importance. And this is just another example of the current situation regarding data protection and cybersecurity in some of the companies in China. And as you can see in this picture, it's a pure chaos in this office. This is exactly what we have learned in several of our projects, that the compliance implementation and the awareness of compliance implementation are still missing in some subsidiaries of our clients. The employees do not receive any training regarding the data protection, and the password policy are quite poor. And even if a management protocol exists already, there is a good chance that it's currently not implemented at all. So it is our job to help you to find out, well, what is really going on in your office in China, to keep things organized and recorded, and make sure that you are compliant with the latest regulations. And besides the documentation of your data processing activities, we also help to analyze its IT structure of your system. For a multinational cooperation, it's quite common nowadays that the IT system is deployed locally in China and managed partly by global IT in the headquarters. So it might result in the situation that neither the global IT nor the staff on site in China know how exactly does the IT structure of their system looks like. Our job is to draw you a clear picture of your IT system and help you assess it if there are already enough security products have been employed to prevent potential breach or leakage. And for that, we also work with the state certificated test centers in China to make sure that your systems meet the requirement of the national standard, to make sure the system is or will be registered properly at the relevant authority in China in order to avoid any risks legally and technically. Okay, so this is all the experience that I want to share with you today. And now I'm going to give the word back to my colleague Alexander for a quick summarize and recommendation as well.
Yes, thank you, Haitong. So just to sum up here real quick for you, the enforcement deadline in 3 weeks is what you should focus on right now. Depending on your situation, you have to communicate with your IT department, as they are most likely not aware or just unfamiliar with the standards that are being enforced right now. And critically, most likely the data documentations are not in place. So of course you want to save time and money, but regarding data protection, maybe an investment here is quite good for the future. As we've mentioned, a little project here now concerning the deadline will also serve as an employee training locally in China, which might kick off your data protection ambitions in China for the future in a well-orderly manner. So what you can do here is just examine your compliance need, as we have suggested with this layered approach. Look at your situation, do a quick threshold analysis. If you fall under the threshold, you're good to go. Document your risk assessment here. If you pass the threshold, do a thorough assessment. Make sure you get all the data activities rightly documented. And after that, if you see that you pass the governmental regulated threshold for the data export, be sure to take action on the implementation here. Do your personal information assessment and also get your standard contracts that are specific to China ready for governmental oversight. So do your risk-based evaluation here, but also keep in mind that there's local needs of your subsidiaries that you have to take into account. Be sure to take into account their motivation, their interest, and also their day-to-day work. lead them on this issue, as they have to do their daily work and need clear instruction here. So communicate with your subsidiary as soon as possible and consolidate a project team here to meet the deadline. It's only 3 weeks. You have your compliance needs ready. That is good. So you can just start off with doing your Chinese standard contracts for the data export. But if not, do your assessment now. This means specifically for the next steps, communicate, assess, and then comply. So engage your subsidiary now and define the project team. Have the responsible team organize the process, identify your compliance locally, and act accordingly to get the documents right. And that's basically it. These 3 steps. It's only 3 weeks. That should do the trick, though. And yes, that's for it so far. And we can move over to the questions. Let's see. Okay, the first question would be, could you tell a bit more about the projects and industries that you've been operating in? Maybe Haitong, you can take this one.
Okay. Well, we have been receiving our projects from numerous and various industry, include like, for example, automobile, machinery, healthcare, and like IT and SaaS service provider as well. And for the data analyze and data mapping project, I think we have done like more than hundreds of them in the past years. And for the PCA and standard contract clauses project, because it's a rather new stuff in this year, so I think there's like a dozen projects it's with us. It's right now ongoing. Okay, I have received another question regarding our organizational structure and how does our project team look like. So Alex, maybe you can have this one.
Yes, we are controlling the project management from the EU. We're based in Munich, but execute online and in China on the ground. We are a controlling team here with roughly 50 members and a couple, just around 100 IT experts on site. We are operating all over China. And the project teams are mostly consisting of 3 consultants, and we operate in German, English, or Chinese, according to your needs, basically. Yeah, more technical question as well regarding the administrative oversight and what is to be expected after the deadline. Maybe Haitong?
Yes, of course. Well, our experience in general is the periodic audits are becoming more and more regular in China. We have noticed a more, well, like a more increasing pressure from the government sides. And there is also a regionally difference between different cities, different province. Like from our experience, from our project, the Shanghai have the most strict regulation and rules, but like I said, it's in China nowadays. General, it's becoming more and more strict regarding the periodic audit and the governmental control. So it will be as well. It will be our recommendation as well that act quick, because it's getting more and more strict anyway. So it will be a very good idea to start now and get your compliance ready.
Yeah, we've also got 2 more questions that are more regarding specific operations. We should probably answer those by email afterwards. And more questions I don't see right now that are like commonly addressable. Maybe go to the next slide, because of course after this session you can also just contact us, shoot us an email, give us a call. We're happy to help. And thanks for your interest in this topic. Be sure to set up your plans for the next 3 weeks and just face this deadline with confidence. Communicate with your team in China, and you should be good to go. Thanks again. See you soon.
Well, thanks for coming to our webinar today, and we're looking forward to hear from you. Thank you very much.